Hello and welcome to SDU Rio MakerSpace's tutorials. My name is Mirzad, and in this tutorial we will cover the basics of using the 3D slicing software Cura. This video will cover downloading and setting up the software, setting up printers, navigating within Cura, adding and manipulating models, the UI elements, basic print settings, slicing. You can download it for whatever operating system you have. And you save it. After it's done downloading, go through the installation process. Once Cura is open, press the Get Started, press Agree, Next, and you don't have to make an Ultimaker account, so you can just skip this. Now, you have to add the printers that we have here at SDU MakerSpace. So by pressing Add Non-Network Printer, you can add your first printer here. At our MakerSpace, we have 5 Ultimaker printers, 2 S5s, 2 S3s, and 1 Ultimaker 3. The first printer we'll add is 1 and 5, which are both Ultimaker S5. And we name them this way so you can remember that this is printer 1 and 5 that are Ultimaker S5s. Press Next. Now you can skip all this and press Finish. If we want to add the rest of the printers, you can press here and press Add Printer and add more printers. And this way you will add the rest of the printers at our MakerSpace. Your printer setup should look like this after you've added all the printers in our MakerSpace. Now let's look at navigating in Cura. We have the printer bed right here, and if we click and hold the right mouse button, we can rotate around the print bed in all directions. If we hold middle mouse click, we can pan from side to side, up and down, and in all other directions as well. Let's try adding a file. You can either add a file by just dragging in and dropping the file, or you can open it using this button, locating it, and opening it, or up here pressing Open File. When you've added your file, it will be dropped onto the printer bed. And if we left click on the model, we can select it and we get access to the menu on the left over here. You can add files such as STL or object files. We recommend you use STLs. Other files are also able to be added. You can find the documentation of this on Cura's website. Now, on the left here, we have a few different menus. One of them is Move, which you can also select by pressing T. And here you can change the position of your object. Right now it is centered in the middle, but I could always change some of these by typing the number or manually by dragging on the sliders. The next menu is Scale, which is also accessible by pressing S. Here you can scale your model. Right now it is only 2 millimeters in the X direction, 0.6 in the Y, and 2 millimeters in the Z. Uniform scaling is put on, so if I change one, all of them will change. Then we also have Rotate by pressing either selecting with left click or pressing R, where we can rotate our part, lay it flat, so it lays flat on the surface, or choose the surface to align to the build plate. Next, we have Mirror. You can select it or press M, and here you can mirror your parts in all the directions. The fifth tool is called Per Model Settings. In here, you can choose to have different print settings for individual models. You can choose to print the model with the standard settings or print it as support. You can also modify settings for overlapping models, change what the program should do when overlaps do happen. And you can also do it so it doesn't support overlaps. So where there are overlaps, there won't be added support. The last thing we'll look into is adding support blockers. So by pressing either just left-clicking or selecting with E, we can add support blockers by pressing. Everything within the volume of the cube won't get support. And you can scale these cubes and you can move them around. We'll have a bit more look at this when we go through slicing. Underneath here we have the printhead selector. So you can change the printheads, and you can change which printhead you print with. Now you can also change this by right-clicking the model and then choosing which printhead to print the part with. Sometimes the printheads won't be selectable in here, which will be because they are not enabled in the menu up here, which we'll go through now. Up here you can see that we have printhead 1 and 2, both set to PLA. If you're printing with another material, you should find it here and use that instead. In MakerSpace, we're always using AA 0.4 cores for the printer cores, so just keep this as a standard. And if it's not enabled, you won't be able to select it in here, so enable them to be able to select the printheads. This can be used to either print supports in a different color, maybe. It won't be print faster just by using two printheads, but you could have supports either be a different color to easily identify it when you're removing it after your print is done, or you can use water-soluble print material as your support material so that you can just drop your part into water and remove the support that way. Over here you had your printer selection, so depending on what printer, you have to select the right profile. Here we have print settings, and if we pick Ultimaker 5, S5 or S3, we'll have some different profiles here. You have the default, visual, engineering, and draft. And I'll put up in the screen a resource from Cura's website about when to use the individual profiles and when they are good and when they're not. Here you set your layer height. So each layer will have this height, and depending on what you're printing, you have to select the right value for your print. Here you control your infill, with 20 being the standard setting, and you can choose whatever infill percentage you need for your print. Gradual infill will start printing at with 0% infill and will increase up until the maximum during the print. You can enable support by clicking this button and choosing which extruder to extrude support with. Adhesion is, as a standard, always put on and will print a layer that will help keep your part onto the build plate as it's printing your part. Custom settings is something you can play around with, where you can change a lot of these settings in more detail. For now, we'll just use these basic settings. Now, when you've chosen your settings, you can press Slice. By slicing, we are creating the G-code for the 3D printer, which is going to interpret it and create your part from that G-code. If we press on Preview, we can see how this actually will translate and how our part will be printed. The blue is our supports, and you can see that the places I placed the cubes, if we go back to prepare, don't have supports in here. So that's a way to remove supports where you don't want them. Over here, you can also go through the individual layers to see how your print is going to be printed on the printer. Down here, we see the estimated time of print. This is very important for you when you're using the Ultimakers at MakerSpace, since you will have to be booking for your print. Book the printers in the amount of time that you need for the print, and also remember to come within 30 minutes of your started time slot, as otherwise people will have the right to take your printer. We hope that this tutorial was helpful and that you now have a basic understanding of how to use Cura. Contact us anytime if you have questions. Happy making!